Trustee Barron. Mayor Each.
Present. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Okay, we have a couple things for recognition. First, we want to congratulate the Homer 33C girls bowling team on winning the Illinois Elementary School Association's state bowling tournament in Joliet on April 12th and 13th. The top 24 teams from the state bowled 10 games over 2 days. The Homer girls bowling team were the defending state champions and won it again for back-to-back state championships. The girls team set the state record for total pinfall at 7,268, which beat the previous record by over 400 pins. All the girls are back there. Okay, so I would now like to recognize Hadley Middle School teacher and bowling coach Andrew Dole for leading the team through the season and in the state championship events. I would like to recognize the parents who assist the coaches and encourage the team members that have made our community proud. Take it for granted, folks. So,
thank you so much for the pleasure. Good job coming back again.
Great job. I call it. Try not to butcher it.
No, they're pretty easy. You got it.
Okay. Lauren Bases. Congratulations.
Oh, we need the picture of her.
Yeah. Okay. So if you could come down to over here. Cassie Contis. Contis. Which way? Katie Contis. Paige Matasik. And then for Coach Andrew Dole.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Got it?
Parents all set?
Awesome. Thank you so much for recognizing us.
Looking
Appreciate
forward
it.
to next year.
Thank you. Try for the 3-peat next year, right?
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. Memorial Day, the village will be closed Monday, May 27th. In observance of Memorial Day, national business hours, normal business hours will resume on Tuesday, May 28th. We also have, well, you can handle it. We'll go to the trustees and we'll start out with Trustee Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting on behalf of the Homer Community Festival Committee. The festival dates are still set for Thursday, June 20th through Sunday, June 23rd. Plans are continuing to move forward to move to Heritage Park, and given the amount of rain we've had recently, we're also developing a worst-case scenario backup plans to have ready in case the worst should happen. And maybe asking for a proclamation against rain until sometime after the festival. Thursday, June 20th is fireworks night. This year, we anticipate that bus goers will be able to stay in the park and view the full ground show and the sky display. And the fireworks will be set to classic Beatles tunes. Friday, June 21st is Special Needs Day from 2:30 to 4:30. Carnival will be free for all Homer residents and their children with special needs. You do need to pre-register, and you can check on our website for that. Mega passes will be going on sale starting June 3rd at Village Hall. Passes are $55 in advance, and at $65 at Blood Fest. This really is a great bargain. We encourage everybody to take advantage of the early bird discount. Passes are good for all days of the fest, and as in years past, there are a few rides that don't fall into the Mega Pass system, but we're not sure which ones those are, so we'll update that as we go. We're always looking for adult and youth volunteers, so please contact the village or the road district. If you want to volunteer, you can visit us at homerfest.com or on social media for more details. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Gray. Trustee Rogers?
No report.
Thank you, Trustee Rogers. Trustee Pesarino?
No report.
Thank you. Trustee Sweas?
No report this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Village Clerk?
No report.
Village Attorney?
No report.
Public Safety Officials? I don't think we have one. Administrative Analyst?
Just a brief report on the active core construction. Masonry and roofing will be completed this week. Electric is done, so the site is lighted, but we have yet to begin asphalt due to the ongoing rain.
Thank you, Matt. Village Manager?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to let the board and the public know that our local priorities and projects for 2019 and 2020 have been forwarded to our representatives, both at the state and the federal levels. We actually got a call this week also from Senator Curran's office asking for that information in anticipation of the state capital bill. So all that has been sent out this week.
Good. Thank you. We'll go to public comment. I know there's going to be a lot of discussion on chickens and the bike path, so what I would ask you is, if something's already been discussed, let it go, and if you have something you want to add on to it, you're more than welcome to speak. So if you could keep it to 3 minutes, it would be very nice. We'll start out with Nancy Elder.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Edlitter, and I'm here to talk about the bike path. I've been a resident of Glen for 20 years, and we are very lucky that our stated village values reflect the unique personality of our village: community and nature in harmony. I strongly support our stated goal of developing a parks and recreation system that promotes healthy lifestyles by offering active and passive recreational opportunities. One of the key objectives of that goal is to develop guidelines for incorporation of trail systems and linkages to existing and planned trail system. I strongly support this goal. I hear that a few people fear that property values might go down and crime might go up when we promote trail use. Nothing could be further from the truth, so let's examine the facts. According to the 2018 report commissioned for the Walton family, VDC Research and Consulting found that bike trails added nearly $15,000 to the values of homes within 2 miles of trails. The Burke's Glen Trail study shows that property near a trail is easier to sell than similar property away from a trail. In addition, almost 2/3 of residents felt trails increase the quality of life in the neighborhood, resulting in a very high level of public acceptance and support. Clearly, there is a positive impact to our property values when we support and use bike trails. In terms of fears about crime, the Tammy Tracy and Hugh Morris study of trail security showed that, and I quote, crime rates are lower on trail networks than the overall crime rate for the region. In a state of Delaware Department of Transportation report, the accumulation of suburban rape for mugging, assault, rape, and murder was 428 per 100,000 people in the general community, and there were only 0.03 per 100,000 on bike trails. Since Glen has one of the lowest crime rates in the country, our trails must be really safe. There are also health benefits from exercising. Walking and bike riding are 2 of the healthiest ways to exercise. By putting a network of connecting bike paths throughout our community, we can get both the health benefits and the tranquility and stress-releasing benefits of walking in nature. As a previous winner of the Glen Harmony in Nature Award, I can certainly appreciate the benefits of communing with nature. I can't think of a better way to promote the core values of this wonderful community than promoting bike paths. At the same time, we will be enhancing our property values, reducing our crime rate, and improving the health of the entire community. Bike paths do so many good things, we must encourage our elected officials to proceed with their plans for expanding our network of bike paths in Homer Glen. So please, put one in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, did you want to talk to?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll be quick. My name is Michael Oliver, and I'm representing the bike path. I sort of represent the whole Homer Glen community. I'm not part of the two subdivisions that have been speaking. I've been a resident here at Homer Glen for 20 years. As a former manager for a major international corporation, I know how important it is that we base decisions on facts, not on individual opinions. I'm personally very lucky to be here. In May of last year, I had a heart attack, and when I recovered in the intensive care unit, my doctor said I needed to start a serious cardio exercise program. He said walking and bike riding were two great ways to stay alive. I'm also very lucky that our subdivision sits right between the Heroes Trail and the Spring Creek Trails off Bell South Road. I ride my bike as often as I can on those unique trails so I can stay alive. The trails provide critical exercise for my heart, and the immersion in nature's flora and fauna enliven my soul. If you spend any time on our unique trail systems, you know the benefits to your body and your mind. A state of Michigan funded a survey of residents who live near trails. 72% said they provided useful recreation opportunities. 67% said they offered personal enjoyment and supported community pride. 63% said the trails provided health and fitness benefits. When's the last time 63% of people agreed on anything? A recent Florida study showed 52% of Americans would like to bike more, and 53% favor increased spending on bike facilities. The National Association of Home Builders in 2008, and I quote, said, "Trails are the most desired amenity that homeowners seek when buying a home." According to Builder magazine, the benefits that buyers consider vital are good schools, parks, and walking trails. The Dallas Morning News reported that some builders report up to a 25% premium for properties that back up against the trails. A Birkdale Trail study shows that concerns about decreased property values or increased crime or a lower quality of life due to trails is unfounded. And in fact, the opposite is true. Multi-use trails are an amenity that helps sell homes, increase property value, and improve the quality of life. So it's clear that trails have tremendous value to the community. And no amenity could be more emblematic of our core values of community and nature in harmony. Spending time on our bike trails strengthens our hearts, enriches our souls, and connects us as a community. I strongly recommend we continue to develop the bike trails according to the plans you put forward.
Ellen, did you want to speak?
Yes, please. Good evening. Before I give my remarks, I would just like to take a moment to, Mr. Mayor, to thank our trustees and all of you that are in front of me for all the things that you do for our community, all the time you give to make our community special. Thank you so much. My name is Ellen Elliger. I'm a longtime resident, 34 years of Homer Glen. I am here to speak as a homeowner in the Statler Ridge subdivision as regards the proposed construction of the bike trail and entrances near the northwest corner of the new Heritage Park. As such a longtime Homer resident, allow me to share a historical point of fact regarding parks and my subdivision. In order to obtain a building permit, every homeowner in Statler Ridge subdivision was required to pay a park donation fee. The park donation fees were as little as $700 and could be as much as several $1,000s. Every homeowner in Statler Ridge paid these large park donation fees. The irony of the fee is that there is no park in Statler Ridge, and there never will be a park in Statler Ridge. Because we have no park space whatsoever in Statler Ridge, and we have paid the park fees, it should be obvious that the new Heritage Park is very important and highly valued by those of us living in Statler Ridge. We will never have a subdivision park or a subdivision community nature space over there. As the new Heritage Park is being completed, we in Statler Ridge find we have no safe access to the new park without driving to it. There are no sidewalks along Green Road. There are no sidewalks along 151st Street. There is no safe way for children, homeowners, and seniors to access the new park. The proposed new pedestrian and bicycle path would allow the same safe access to the park for Statler Ridge residents as other residents in Homer Glen. Without the new bike path, residents in my subdivision, children through seniors, are denied the same safe access to the new Heritage Park as other Homer Glen residents. Statler Ridge should not be discriminated from having safe access to the new park. I urge you to vote in favor of constructing the bike trail and entrances near the northwest corner of Heritage Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Sindler? John Walters?
I'm not going to go through everything I talked about last time. You guys want to know why I don't. I'm not against bike paths. I think there should be a bike path. I think the park should be connected to the bike path, but we're arguing about how's the best way to do it. Now, when I walked this bike path, put on the GPS, people think that they're going to have access to the park. It's the whole back part of the park is wet. It's swampy. That's all it's ever going to be. That if you walk from, I'm one of the closest ones to the new bike path. If you walk from my house to the active core, it's just over half a mile. If you walk from my house through the township property, which is where the bike path should connect to Heritage Park, it's just over half a mile. There's no difference. I'm one of the closest ones to the bike path you want to put in. I'm one of the furthest ones away from the access that goes into the township from Woodbine West Estates. Most of the people in Woodbine West Estates would be closer to the active core activities if they went through the township property. I went over and I talked to Pam Meyer. She said the only communication she's had about opening up and doing a bike path was one email last fall. She'd be more than willing to sit down with the joint committee, with the two park committees, and try to discuss and work out a way where the bike path could come through from Woodbine West into the township property and into Heritage Park. I don't know why this wasn't addressed. You know, back in 2008 in the presidential campaign, there was a big issue about the bridge to nowhere. This is a bike path from Woodbine West into Heritage Park. This to nowhere. It's to a swamp. You have to walk from 147 and Dixon all the way to active core. It's a half mile. It's not going to cut down any distance. There's already most of the way is already done. If you go in through the walking path from Woodbine West into the township property, and you go through the township property into the park.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Kelly Klein, did you want to?
Hi, good evening. I'm not here to talk about a bike path, so it'll be a little change of course, but I'm Kelly Klein. I'm a 5-year resident of Homer Glen, so I'm actually kind of new to the area. But I came to Homer Glen to start a family, which I have. I have 2 young boys and I'm a teacher. So I first wanted to thank you for taking my emails and for considering the Wear Orange resolution tonight. I saw that it was on the agenda and I was very pleased by that, so thank you. Given the current climate regarding gun violence, the fact that gun violence is the second leading cause of death for adolescents in America, and that there is an estimate of approximately 50 women shot a month by a current or former partner, I am proud of Homer Glen for considering this proclamation to praise responsible gun ownership while also paying tribute to those who have lost their lives to senseless gun violence. If or hopefully when you decide to sign the proclamation, we would love it if we could have a photo with perhaps the mayor and the proclamation or any trustee who would be willing to do so. Again, I just want to say thank you very much for considering this issue, which I think I consider to be incredibly important given the current climate of America as well as our state and surrounding area. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Steve Januski.
That's right.
Second?
Second. Okay, I don't have anything written down. I'm sorry, this is completely unrelated to a bike path, although I think it's nice. Been a resident of Glen, Kingston Hills, right down the street since August of 2010. And when I moved in, there were a lot of older couples that run our street. Now, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I got hit by a car. I was living on the west side, and kids used to play in the alleys. And it took about 5 of us to get hit by a car until they actually put speed bumps in, and it never happened again. I live on Yorkshire Drive, and most of the people that drive on Yorkshire Drive are fine because they live in the neighborhood. But the ones that don't live in their neighborhood like to tear rubber down the road with kids. Since I moved in, there's been an addition of at least 25 kids under the age of 12 on our street, and they're all outside out front playing. So I'm not really asking for anything much. All I really want is a stop sign somewhere around the block, or speed bumps would be obviously much better. That's pretty much it. I'd love to open up a conversation with you all. My contact information is on the sheet. That's all I have today.
Thanks, Steve. We'll get the public's service safety get a hold of you, let you know when the meetings are, and that would be the way to start everything. And then we can talk to the rest of the departments and see what we can do.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Glen McGarry.
Hello, Glen McGarry from Orland Park Address in Homer Glen, and I've been here 42 years, so I think I win tonight. The Heritage Corridor Business Alliance would love you all, even in the audience, and this is a very well-attended meeting, to join us in our golf outing this June 7th. It's a Friday, 9-hole golf outing at Ruffled Feathers. I have information for anybody in the audience that would like it, but all of you, of course, have my personal invitation. Thank you. I hope I see you there.
Thank you, Glen. Jared Fox. No, I know I couldn't screw that, I know.
Good evening. My name is Jared Fox. I moved here 44 years ago in Sylvan Hills.
Here you go, Glen.
12 years later, I moved to Old Oak. What do they have in common? They're subdivisions. I believe all of you have an email from me, which I emailed out to you all, about the subject of farm animals. I oppose in your workshop tonight option 3. Option 3 doesn't work for people that live in subdivisions. It's not that I'm against honeybees, I'm just against the beekeepers in subdivisions. I bought into subdivisions for residential living. I did not buy into a subdivision to do country living with animals. And I've been living for the past 3 years with bees next to me, on and off. And it's not a pleasant experience. Subdivisions are meant and zoned for residential living. Again, not country living. Our adjacent communities don't allow beekeepers. That's Orland Park, Block Court of Agricultural only, New Lenox, not allowed in incorporated area. Lamont, not allowed in subdivisions unless they got an acre lot. Members on the planning commission wanted agricultural only. They compromised 5 acres, 75-foot setback. There was a reason for that. They talked about liability and insurance. Should it be required? It would be a Homer Glen beekeeper was called to the podium a month ago by trustee Sweas. He recommended to you 2.5 acres and 75-foot setback. Between the planning commission and his recommendation, that should not be ignored at all. That's why I oppose option 3, because that would put beekeepers, the availability of beekeepers in any lot larger than a 1/4 acre. That's not right. Honeybees roam beyond any enclosures, which become nuisance to people, private space, like they did mine. I had thousands of bees, 2 weekends in a row, all over my roof, my brick, my patio, my grass, my shrubs, and nothing could be done because there's a moratorium on the ordinance. That's not right. Totally not right. I have neighbors that are allergic to bee stings, and to put 100,000 bees next to people is wrong. It's just totally wrong. This is residential living, not country living. My neighbors, I walked around the block. I couldn't find anyone except the next door neighbor who's a beekeeper. No one wants this. All I'm going to say to you is, there was one community, Schaumburg. They actually are trying out a community bee yard. That's Heritage Park. You could put a bee yard out there for all your beekeepers that don't qualify. A lot of residents in Schaumburg, they don't like it, but they're trying it. At least they're not in the backyards. That pretty much concludes my public speech, but not my opposition. I just want you to make the right choice in your workshop and eliminate option 3. And listen to the beekeeper that recommended 2.5 acres and 75-foot setback. You need that setback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweas. Next will be Joe. You gotta tell me what the last name is.
Finland.
Finland, okay.
My name is Joel Finland. I'm a resident of Woodbine West. I'll make it short. I'm a supporter of the bike path. I have 2 older sons that are in their 20s, so I'm not here speaking for them, but I'm speaking for the safety of the young kids. If they didn't have direct access, it would take them off the streets, so driving around the subdivision on their bike. Also, during the crowded baseball season and football seasons at the complex, they would have to be going through those parking lots. I think that would create a safety issue for them too. So those are just my issues that I wanted to bring up. Also, they're talking about the criminal activity. There's people that come in and use the ponds that don't live in the subdivision. Since I've been living there for 10 years, and they're fishing there all the time, and there's been no crime incidents. So I just don't think this would be an issue of a crime either. So, and I'd like to thank the fine job that these people did bringing up the other issues. Thank you.
Sean O'Reilly.
I'm actually here on another matter, but I'd just like to comment on the bike path. I'm a big proponent of bike paths as a builder and values regarding the residents around the bike path and access and, the kids and people being able to use the bike path. I think it's a great thing for our community and people to be able to use.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Michelle Parcher.
I'll be quick, I promise. Michelle Parcham, I've been here now, this will be my third time, so thank you for having me back. Christine Rudd could not be here because she is traveling for work, but as you know, we 100% support the bike path. Thank you for your time and attention to coming out to our neighborhood and walking the streets with us, and even tweaking the proposal to address some of the concerns by some of the residents. So we do appreciate that. Thank you for sending out the letter so that we all had informed decision-making abilities to the 262 homes that will be, we think, a benefit to this bike path. So thank you. And just on John's Township, we did submit a proposal to the township, and their answer was that they would have to present it to the township board, and that they've got considerable infrastructure. And it's just another layer that we really don't need here because it's a whole different governing body. And to take us through the baseball fields when they're having those games, that's not safe. Nobody thinks that's safe. I didn't think it was a good proposal when I submitted it, but that's what I got on behalf of the board. So thank you, I appreciate that. And just so you know, we have access to the baseball fields now, and we don't have the crime. So I'm not sure, because to me it's not a good argument. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, Mr. and Mrs. Joy.
Hi, my name is Bernie Joy. I've lived in Homer Glen 5 years down Dixon Lane. I'm still here in support for the bike path, as many people are. One thing I want to remember is this is a public park. It's a beautiful park. My family, my neighbors, our friends in the area, we are so much anticipating the opening of this park. I think we all think it's wonderful, so thank you for everything you guys do to bring this park to the community. But access to that park is just as important as the park. Bike paths and walking paths aren't very useful if you can't get to them except by vehicle. And the children in the neighborhood, obviously I'm down on we have to cut through an entire subdivision, come down, cut through baseball fields. So I'm here to support all access to as many homes and as many families, wherever they are, north, south, east, or west of the park. Thanks.
That's it for public comments. Now we'll go back into start off with legislation and action items. First, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-018, an ordinance approving a variance to 75-13, administration of chapter 75, buildings of the code to reduce the required distance from the structure for an above ground pool from 10 feet to 5 feet for certain real property located at 14343 Southeast Glen Drive, Homer Glen, Illinois.
So, I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mayor, I'd just like to mention, due to the easements, looking at the map and everything, the topography, the trees and everything, I do see this as a hardship, so I don't have any issue with granting a variance in this case.
Agreed, it slopes downhill towards the big retention area. There's really nothing on the other side that would impose on anybody.
Anyone else? Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Rogers? Aye. Trustee Sweas? Aye. Trustee Pagano?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-014, an ordinance approving a variance to increase the impervious surface area from 40% to 44.8% for certain real property located in the R4 Single Family Residential District, 12103 Joan Marie Drive, Homer Glen, Illinois. 12103 Joan Marie Drive, case number HG-1904-V.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Gray. Mr. Pedino. Discussion.
I think it's a good
to compromise from where we were, where we are. It is very wet back there. It is very tight between all of the homes, and I think it's a really good, fair compromise. And the permeable pavers are something that we still need to make sure are addressed in our ordinances.
I agree with all of that, and as well as in our write-up, it says at the village manager's discretion about putting in the additional stone base and everything, and I want to make sure that that is going to be the case here, so that those permeable pavers do act, doing what they're intended to do, which is to help some of that water perk down before it runs down that hill. It is pretty wet back there. I was there Sunday, long before you get to the backyard, it was wet. I mean, we've obviously been in rain up here. But also what we see in the surrounding lots, it looks like this is almost the norm in that subdivision. So
I do have a question. I don't know if the petitioner is here. Are these pavers being installed by a contractor or yourself? I'm just curious as to the procedure on that.
Hi, my name is Doug Consini. I'm the homeowner and the applicant. So yes, I do have a contractor installing the pavers.
Okay, and then we'll make sure they go according to...
Yep, he's already received the detail that DJ's staff has sent me, so he's aware of what he needs to do.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, willing to agree to install the pavers.
Congratulations. Well, I didn't
Not going yet.
Well, when we talked about having permeable pavers in there, it's a great idea. I've known it for a long time, and unfortunately, ordinance-wise, we haven't locked it in yet, but it gives everyone an opportunity to be able to make everything look dressy and accomplish getting rid of the water at the same time.
Agreed, happy to do it.
Well, thank you. So with that, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Trustee Gray.
Aye.
Trustee Holtz. Aye. Trustee Rogers.
Aye.
Trustee Sweas.
Aye.
Trustee Pedalino.
Aye.
I say aye, too. Thank you. Now, congratulations.
Thanks for your help, DJ. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-019, an ordinance approving an amendment to a planned unit development, PUD, granted by ordinance number 16-011 for the property commonly known as 16849 South Cedar Road, Glen, Illinois, HG 1907S, Walter Konow.
I so move.
Second.
Trustee Sweas. Okay. Holtz. Discussion?
Mayor, I'd just like to say that, well, for starters, thank you, Mr. Konow, for saving a historic building. And just to verify, I checked with the chief building officer, Weber, and we're voting tonight on the use of the property, right? The use of the building that goes along with the rest of the buildings on the property, that this is for bringing it in use for banquets and things of that nature, that's right?
Correct.
Okay, because in the plan commission minutes, it was stated about requesting an evaluation of the building itself structurally, and I see the merits of that since it is an old building. We want to make sure that whoever's going to gather there is going to be safe. So, but that's a whole different thing, right? That's
We're in the process
of
getting that information now.
Okay. And you're also going to, I'm sorry, you have a provision in there for the on FDA 72, which is the fire alarms, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
And thank you, Mr. Konow, for saving that building. It was something to watch it rolling down the street.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
But I just want to, I know you're ag, and you don't need to follow our lighting ordinance because of the ag and zoning, but I encourage you to try to use some light fixtures that would prevent sky glow and
Oh, absolutely.
trespass.
Yep.
Thank
We
you.
have every intention of doing that.
And thanks for getting this done. It is a nice site. It's nice to see the building.
Thank you.
Great addition to the village. Okay, any other comments? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Rogers.
Aye.
Trustee Sweas.
Aye.
Trustee Pedalino.
Recuse myself.
Trustee Gray.
Aye.
Trustee Holtz. Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-020, approving 1, plat of subdivision and preliminary site improvement plan, and 2, a map amendment from A2 rural residential to R3A single-family residential district with certain variations for the proposed new subdivision located at 12513 West Hadley Road, Homer Glen, Illinois, Duke O'Malley subdivision, HG 1905 PAS.
So moved.
Trustee Gray, trustee Coles, discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to start out with the fact that we all now have a copy of the letter from the Fire Protection District, which strongly advises us against approving this based on our own village ordinance, which calls for 2 access points to any subdivision, and this is clearly not going to accomplish that. So I hope everybody's having the opportunity to read that.
Unfortunately, they're trying to get something done in Will County that wasn't, they weren't going to budge. And the fire department did say they had to have.
Right, and I think we were all in agreement several months ago when we looked at this first time, and the subdivision you had brought forward then where you did have the access on the Hadley, and it's unfortunate that Will County didn't go along with that, but I think that went a long way toward making that a safe one. I know that there were still some compromises. Some people in the legacy Windsor courthouses didn't like the road behind them, but at least it took care of the safety portion of that, and it still protected the land as much as possible. But this one, I think, because of the fact that the fire department is against it, that's going to go a long way toward. I still think there might be a little bit more to this plan. There's a nice piece of property here that maybe this isn't the right plan for it at this time. We like the first one. This one does not accomplish those things, and maybe there's another bite of this apple. That's just my thoughts.
I agree with Keith, and I have a question with, being new to as trustee, but were we provided with documentation from the county as to why it was turned down, that site access?
Yes, how are you? So the Will County Highway Department did not allow us access there across, it lined up with the street across Hadley Road there, Brentwood.
Correct.
Originally, we positioned the street to line up with that, figured it would be a nice flow across, and they said because of safety, they will not allow 2 access points that close to each other. So on this particular parcel, they will not allow any other access points out to Hadley Road. The original development we had was 11 lots. We've taken it down to 7 lots with 1 estate lot up front, keeping the original access point of the original property that's in distress there that I think everyone wants to get rid of. When I met with the fire department originally with staff, we spoke about putting fire sprinklers into the 6 residences on Windsor Court. And then we've now also agreed to put a hammerhead in on lots 3 and lots 4 at the end of we're only extending the street roughly 240 feet, give or take a couple feet. And there is there's a lot of subdivisions. I built a lot of homes in Glenview Walk. There's 1 access point there. Roughly 70-some homes in that subdivision. I know a lot of the other subdivisions, Hidden Valley has 1 access. We're just looking to put 6 additional lots in, and the residences on Windsor Court that back up to the west, lots 16 through 21. Originally, they had some issues with, the density, etc. So we're taking it down from 11 lots to 7 lots. It's obviously been a big compromise. We also have, the homes that we're looking to build there will be consistent with the homes that built in the Glenview Walk Estate subdivision. So values, versus some of the values of some of the other homes will be equal, or they're going to be custom quality homes, and
I have a question. Did you resubmit to the county about the access after you lowered the density?
No, we are allowed, I spoke with the county. Right now, there is one access point in the driveway out to Hadley Road, and we're not looking to change that at all. Originally with staff, we talked about a flag lot, where, and I know that, we met some resistance on putting a flag lot to put 2 lots off the original thing, so we have one access point now, which we're entitled to with the county, we're not changing the access point, so there's one residence there. We're going to keep one residence to that access point. We're also looking to put detention in the front on Hadley, which will definitely be more appealing to the eye than what's there now. We've also worked to install a tornado siren in the detention area. We've worked with staff to, allow that and put that in our plans as well. So that's.
So with regard to the large estate lot, if that were to be subdivided, would a flag lot or a shared driveway be permitted under ordinances? I'm sorry, I haven't had time to research it.
Sure. So what we're looking at.
Actually, that's for statute. Sorry.
So,
I know we don't like flag lots, I'm just asking if that was something that would technically be allowed under our ordinance.
well, even if you create a flag lot, there's not enough room to create the 66-foot right-of-way. That would actually take out most of the detention area, impact the tree line there.
Okay.
So, it could be done, but with some modifications.
That would be creating a flag lot with a dedicated street, right? But you could do it with a private street.
Yeah.
Because you can build a private street.
Right, for the private street with less than 66-foot right-of-way.
So say hypothetically, if we were to approve this and down the road, that lot were to be requested to be, I'm not suggesting we're going to do this, but it would be possible that then we could end up with a flag lot or a private street.
From speaking with BJ, I believe that would have to be approved by the county because that would be and I'm not sure they would be open to that. Right now there's one house there, and we're looking to keep one house there.
Seems like there's a lot of unanswered questions. I do have some concerns with regards to lots 1 through 6. The stated variances is to narrow the width, and the homes are beautiful. I have several clients in Glen who walk the state, so I'm familiar with their work, and I'm very impressed. But my lot width is 89, almost 90 feet wide, and this is my mediocre house, and there's no way that those houses are going to fit on a 75-foot wide lot. So I have a problem with the density in that specific location. While the overall density might be lowered compared to what you had before, those 6 lots are too narrow in my personal opinion.
BJ, can you please tell me what the side yard setbacks are going to be? So it's 78-foot wide lot, 70 some change on the width.
So we've got R3A, right?
Yeah, so 25-foot side yards or 20.
Yeah, 25 total. So 10 on one side, 15 on the other side.
Right, I get that, but my point is that I'm looking at my lot where I've lived for 20 years, and the lot is 90 feet wide, and I live behind Princeton's, and it's a very modest home. The lot's average about 14,000 square feet. I just don't see the homes you're proposing fitting on those 6 lots. If those 6 lots were downsized to 4, then I might be more amiable.
So
Well, it still goes back to the same thing. The fire department does not want any houses back there unless there's a through street. Because like they said, if God forbid something happened in that corner, you get 2 of the fire engines backing each other, just put a stopper on. Then they have to try to back up to get back out. It's a safety issue. That's all it is. And like they had also said, and I was in that meeting with you, when you got the approval the first time, it's because you had the secondary street, so there was no reason to stop you from what you were doing. You don't have the secondary street right now, and even if you did flag lots, it would be impossible to go all the way to the back. It's just.
And I understand you're going to sprinkle around, but statistically, most of the call-outs that fires goes on are not for active fire. They're ambulances, they're car accidents, statistically, the active fire is the lower of the call-out. So the sprinklers, while they help enact the fire, don't help the majority of the reason why those trucks have had to get back there. As, you know, as a former chair on public safety and being on public safety, I could not go against our fire department's recommendation, and it's a pretty strong recommendation.
And I agree with trustee. I agree with you too.
I would also like to reiterate, we do like your houses. They are beautiful. Longview Walk Estates is beautiful. And, you know, I personally, the density does not really bother me that much. The 15,000 square foot lots. Some people like to live a little bit closer to their neighbors, some don't. You know, that's a preference thing. But, you know, you do put out a quality product, and we do appreciate that. And we do appreciate you trying to clean up the frontage on Hadley. It is kind of an eyesore, as you mentioned. Like I said, I just think that there's probably, I feel very conflicted. I couldn't go against the fire either as being on public safety. And, you know, I think you can probably get something else out of this piece of land. You know, it's not that impacted that we can't come to some resolution.
Well, we spoke about originally putting a cul-de-sac in, up in between lots 4, 5, and 6. Kind of doing the cul-de-sac and then putting 3, you know, as the property goes to the north. And this was what was kind of suggested because of the hammerhead. You know, but a cul-de-sac could be added.
Would that be able to accommodate the fire departments? And their
I don't know, you know, I'm a little conflicted. I met with the fire department. We met there. Everything was, and then, you know,
on the first iteration of your plans or on this one?
No, on this one, and, you know, everything was fine, and then we got a letter stating that it wasn't fine, so it was a little, it wasn't what was discussed in the meeting by any means. Putting the hammerhead in, I know we're talking about backing up, but right now, we're talking about an additional 240 feet.
Right.
It's not like we're adding, you know.
But it seems like we're all kind of stuck on the fire department and not seeing anything.
Well, the fire department wants 2 access points. This property cannot have 2 access points ever. The Will County Highway Department won't allow that to have the.
Well, there's the access to the west though, right? That's still,
that's.
I know
With
it's not
what's
your
back there.
Right, it's not your plan necessarily, but eventually there could be if that were to be bought or developed.
I think after talking with staff and the meetings we've had, I mean, it's kind of, I don't think that road is really going to go anywhere.
Well, I'm not
that's
sure
why we agreed to
how
put
a
it.
cul-de-sac is going to go in between 4, 5, and 6, but, you know, I'd be open to looking at something, especially if we can get, you know, the fire departments to chime in and tell us, you know, if that accommodates their needs at all.
Well, what the fire department says, they want 2 access points. So a cul-de-sac versus a hammerhead is relatively the same thing. There's a cul-de-sac right behind here, so, you know, if there was some sort of public safety issue, you know, there's a hammerhead to turn around, and there's also a cul-de-sac to turn around, which is a lot more than, I mean, built a ton of homes in Glen Walk. I mean, Genie Lane ends at 155th Street. I mean,
But those all predate the village, right? Or they predate our ordinance requiring two means to be addressed. Is that correct?
yeah, I'm not even sure when was that was when that came about, or is that?
It came up when it became Homer Glen.
Okay.
Because there were other subdivisions that had it, and it was unsafe. And I agree with what Trustee Gray is saying. If the property next door to you opens up, well, you have.
But then it's never going to go through your Bell Road, regardless. I mean, it would be another 240.
But you'd be further west on Hadley, and Will County might be more amenable to an access point there.
Because they already have an access point there for the house that's on the property right now. So if they, between the one that they're eliminating, because for unknown reasons, but the next one, it is something that they might, that's what I would do, is look into it to see if they would, if the extension came up. Well, when we talked to you before, you said you already talked to the guy on the property, and it didn't seem like he was in any hurry.
He's usually here. I'm not sure why he's not here today, but he was.
But,
I mean, so then it would be 500 feet, but he wasn't open to.
So, Mr. O'Malley, it sounds like there's some resistance on the board. My understanding is that in order, if we were to deny this, we would need 5 votes to go against our plan commission. Is that correct, Village Manager?
Yes, that is correct.
So we would need 5 no votes to go against our plan commission. And it sounds like there's a steep curve to get this approved. So would you prefer if we tabled this until you have some other looks at it, or do you want us to vote?
I guess we can table it for, and then, what would be the process after we table it? Then meet with staff and then come back?
Yeah, I mean, if you think...
We don't have to go back.
You can get the fire departments possibly to, you know...
The fire department is,
or if you
he's
can
going by the word
detention area, maybe there's some space to be had there and eliminate one lot. I mean, you can, if you were able to... Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like I said, I'm not a developer, so you know.
All right, can I ask the board, I guess when I'm here, what if we just subdivide it and cut it in half? 1 access point in the back, one on Hadley. I mean, at this point, I don't know what to do. I've been dealing with this parcel for about 3 years. We thought, you know, we all came to an agreement. Unfortunately, Will County didn't do it, but I don't know what else to do with it.
I think that would involve tabling and resubmitting a different plan.
Well, my issue with this is the zoning itself, because if you see lots 15 and 16 are R3, and then right next door is the 3A, which is a lot smaller and more dense. I mean, we're talking spot zoning, it's right next door to each other.
Yes.
I mean, it's not...
And I agree, and some of the discussion that took place at the plan commission, I didn't necessarily agree with. They referenced the property to the south, which is currently zoned agricultural, and it's on the comprehensive plan designated moderate density, but that equates to what's in Wedgewood Highlands. And he mentioned Gallagher and Henry, and it's going to be smaller lots, and that's not the case. It could be 20,000 square feet. So 50,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet, in keeping with what the product you put out, which I think is absolutely gorgeous, and I wish I had that, I just don't think it fits on those 6 lots as you proposed. I would absolutely support 4 if you were to bring back a different plan.
Well, you be careful on going to support it because it goes back to the fire department.
Right.
You have to.
Well, so the fire department is never going to approve 1 access point, because that's the ordinance, so.
And you're right, they won't.
I guess if you lower the density and you have it and resubmit it to the county and see what they have to say about that?
No, the county will not allow an access point on that property.
I don't get why. There's already...
I don't get why either. I thought we were all done, and then I was ready to push dirt in 2 weeks. I mean, I had everything ready to go.
You know, I mean, I can see from a safety standpoint, if they thought there were going to be 11 houses, and now there's going to be 5?
All right, do we have any other comments? Then I need a motion to table.
Is it your preference?
I guess at this point, yes.
Mayor, we already are in motion, so Keith Gray made trustee Gray made the original motion and seconded.
Okay, so you please call the roll.
You can withdraw, if he wants to withdraw and change.
Oh, so it wasn't for tabling it, okay. All right. So,
Yeah, I'll retract my motion.
And
I retract my second.
now I need a motion to table.
So,
Trustee Knowles, who's second?
I'll second.
Trustee Gray, any more discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray.
Aye.
Trustee Holt. Aye. Trustee Rogers. Aye. Trustee Sweas. Aye. Trustee Castellino.
Aye.
Motion carries, it's tabled. If you come up with something, or the property doesn't become available, and it's something that could be worked out, so we're going to have the 2, because I talked to them a few times, they're not changing their minds.
Oh, I appreciate it, Paul. I mean, I spoke to the county too, and I need to just...
Well, but if the other property becomes available, then you might have it. So, sorry, but right now, we just can't do that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next Is there a motion to approve the following items related to the construction of the Heritage Park Northwest Bike Trail?
There's an agenda item with 3 subjects. That's what this is saying, so just read them all together, just as one.
One, proceed with the design and construction of the Heritage Park Northwest Bike Trail at this time, and approval of an agreement with HR Green to provide design, construction, engineering services for the Heritage Park Northwest Bike Trail for a not to exceed cost of $6,000 for design engineering and $6,000 for construction engineering, and approval of a change order with deconstruction for the additional costs related to the construction of the Heritage Park Northwest Bike Trail based on the unit prices for the 151st Street Bike Trail, for which deconstruction was awarded the contract to construct, being the lowest responsible bidder for that project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Trustee Sweas?
Second.
Trustee Rogers? Discussion.
Well, I think the residents have brought up, really good points relative to this, the trails, and I do like the newest option that was proposed, as opposed to the first one. It's a nicer compromise on it. Again, this plan has always shown access to the park, and the way that this lays out, it really does bring the community together. You can now safely get from Willfoot Road all the way here to the park. And that's huge.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. Okay, so I appreciate the residents' concern, and I do think that there are other options that warrant more investigation. So the Heroes Trail extension isn't there. Do we have an estimate on how many years away that might be?
There's no estimate at this point. There is money in the budget to do a phase 1 study for that. Typically, when you're applying for any kind of grant funding, they require a phase 1. So that would typically take at least 6 months to potentially even a year to complete by the time that gets through IDOT and that sort of thing. And then depending on whether or not we would be going for funding, it depends on when they have a call for projects.
Right, and then go out to bid and...
Correct.
So I just feel like because there's no Heroes Trail extension, this bike path doesn't really connect to anything. In the meantime, we've got a much shorter area in the township property, and based on what Christina had said earlier, the supervisor is willing to work with us on various things intergovernmental-wise. We've got this complex, and parking there during baseball games as well as football games are problematic. They always have been. I was involved with Stallions and HEC programs for 8 years, and now we have an opening in the fence, which I feel should be moved slightly to the north, connect to our parking lot, which would alleviate parking in that small area. I've talked to the president of the HAC. I don't see there being a problem having a path that runs directly to the south of the southeast ball field. I feel the expense would be a lot less. I walked the property in the northwest corner. It's very wet. The topography there is very uneven. It's very far from the active court area. And I just don't see how the proposed options, we've talked about a few, I just don't see it working. I mean, that maybe it'll work in the future, but I don't feel there's justification to possibly save $15,000 to $20,000 now, because we have the money now, because we got a grant on the south side path. That's great, but we can bank the money until we have some questions that have not been answered, specifically that proposed path has not been done. So we really don't actually know what the cost is. The estimate is $107,000 to connect to the street. I feel like we really need to look at this option at the township property. It would alleviate the parking problems there. Instead of one access in our complex, you would now have the complex access, you would have the Heritage Park access at both of those entries on 151st. Additionally, at the complex, they have a post-camp playground for siblings of kids who are there to attend with their parents who are watching practice, football games, baseball games, you name it. They would be in very close proximity to the active core in those playground areas. I think it would be a win-win for the entire community, and I think that really needs to be evaluated. I'm not saying that in the future we shouldn't have an access in Northwest Point. I'm not saying that at all. I just don't see the need for it now, and I would like to have more information on a possible alternative before we were to go down that road for the northwest corner. Yep.
Well, I do agree with some of the things Trustee Holt said, because I do have some issues. Definitely, if it goes through from Dixon straight into the park and doesn't swirl around anywhere, I'm okay with that. Long as the village is not proposing a fence, as long as the village does a fence, because you have the split rail, you have a 3 split rail, doesn't need to be stained, it's all natural wood. So my big concern is the gates at night. What do you do? Do you have, because I don't want to see the gates open all night long back there, because if you talk to Mr. Robinson, there's always kind of issues back there. So how would we, park's supposed to close at dusk. How would we secure that? Because of course, Will County Sheriff can't get back there. Or do we just deal with that when an issue happens?
Yes.
When there's a problem?
I don't anticipate issues happening, Trustee Sweas. I appreciate your point, but if this were not developed, if this were not a golf course that we're developing into a park, it would have been developed without any fences. Let's face it, all the other parks around the township and the village don't have fences around it, including the front of this park doesn't have a fence around it. We don't have a fence right out front here, and we're not talking about having a gate over on our connection to a woodbine. So I've had a few discussions about gates and when they might be closed. Gates would be okay to have there to close off on those occasions when we want to, when we want to shut down the park for whatever reason. We talked about that a few meetings ago about potentially for Homerfest for the fireworks. We are moving those, so that's probably not going to be an issue at this time. But you should always have a gate built in there so that you can go back there and shut it down for a quick reason. But I personally do not think we should shut those gates until we have those types of reasons. I work downtown. I don't get home until 7 o'clock at night. If we were to tell John Robinson to shut those gates every time he leaves for work, he leaves leaving work at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I would never get in through those access ways. Not to mention it's a fairly, substantial path. If there's a gate back there, you really need to post it at the head of the trail, not the fence area where somebody's just going to get there and we can say that. I think that to Trustee Holtz's point, I didn't like this at first when it was just one long avenue back there, as well as the kind of half arches that kind of brought attention to it and the benches. I like this better. I absolutely agree with Trustee Sweas. The fence has to be part of it. It must be there. I'd also like to add to one of my must-haves is either bollards or a berm at 147th Street for the sensitivity that people are trying to drive through there. And if you see an extension of that, either we have a berm there, so if you're coming east on 147, you're seeing a berm or you're seeing bollards of some sort before you can just continue on the blacktop. So those, in addition to Trustee Sweas wanting the must-have fence, I'd like to add in a must-have bollards or a berm. But I would not be in support of. I'm in support of having gates there, but I'm just not in support of closing them, every day. I think parks are one of those things where you have to take the good with the bad, and you hope, you pray, you plan for the good outweighing the bad, you know. You have to go at it and think that, you know what, we have decent neighborhoods. I live right across the street from a park. I see it all the time. There's no restricted access to that park. People come and go. You're right, it does close at dusk or 10 o'clock or something like that, but, you know, I think for the most part, our residents are responsible. There are going to be kids. There are kids that in my neighborhood, we saw it in waves. They came through, mailboxes got damaged, cars got damaged. All of a sudden, everybody's like, wow, why doesn't that happen anymore? Well, they graduated. They moved on to Renai work. So I'm sorry to say that. I have kids of my own. You know, I know the way these waves go. So I think you plan for things like that, though. You know, Will County can't get back on Dixon. They can't get back on Coachman. They can even, we have Will County on bikes. It's a nice day out. There's path back there. They can ride around on the bikes as well. So, again, in the beginning, I didn't like the plan. I understand some of the sensitivities of the neighbors. Having lived across the street from a park for the last 18 years, as well as what Trustee Burien said last meeting, him living kind of on one of our extensions of Heroes Trail, you hear these things all the time. You know that there could be this, that, or the other happening. But really, it is very rare. It's rare when something happens in the park across my street. It's rare when even we hear about anything. I mean, let's face it, we all hear about everything that goes on in the village. We don't really hear about a lot of stuff going on Heroes Trail. We hear about people not picking up after their dogs, and you should be picking up after your dogs. But that's really it, so.
Well, just to comment on what you were saying about you live across from the park, yes, you do, but it's not tucked way in the back where there is no other houses and things like that. Now, before we move forward, I would like to just get a consensus from the board. Since we have the gates there,
I don't support gates, just for the record. I don't, that makes no sense.
I mean, just keep it open. Well, just like Trustee Gray said, that if you have some function or the fireworks going on, you would have to lock the gates.
Yeah, because we're going to keep the majority of the fence, right? We're just going to make it open. We're not taking down the entire fence,
Can I just point out the entire front of the property is open?
Right.
You can't block a gate to the back part. I mean, if we're going to close off part of the park, let's just use temporary fencing like we've done for the last 10 years for Homerfest. I don't see the point in the village spending money to put up fences that really don't accomplish anything.
Well, you have the fireworks, and if they come in the back way.
Temporary orange fencing, which we've done for the last.
It's defeatable. If we did construction back there or something, and we
It's
said,
all defeatable, that's my point.
you want to make it a little more defeatable than just the snow fence.
Right, I get it, but I'm
Let's
just
not
saying.
talk over each other, because then nobody hears anything.
Right. I'm just saying, I don't see why we should even be putting up fencing back there. Like, if we're talking about this as a park, it should be open, and it would be open were it not for the fact that it was a golf course.
No, because here's where you run into the problem, and there's some people that are in the audience that will hear this. Then you have the quads, you have the snowmobiles, because there's a way, they can still get around all that stuff. So the whole idea of the fence, the only reason they had it is, look what they do under the electrical lights right now. They drive like idiots. So you open this up, that's exactly what you're
It's
gonna
already
have.
open in the front, they can still get.
But there's a lot of access.
And the police are right here.
Right.
You know, could they stick it back there? Yeah. They can get anywhere they want. Everyone can climb a fence. Fence doesn't do anything except stop motorized vehicles from getting back there.
I'd like for Trustee Sweas to have an opportunity to finish her statement.
Thank you. Okay. When I was talking about the gates, I was just asking if, because we should put gates back there, keep them open most of the time, close them when needed, or something or whatever. But what if it does become an issue in the back? Would you want that closed then permanently for a while, or?
What? Try to give us an explanation of what you're trying to tell us.
Well, I mean, if it becomes, at night, if it becomes a congregation point for the neighborhood kids or something like that, because it's tucked back there and you can't really see. But I'm just asking.
I would be open to a discussion on remedies, you know. I mean, that being one.
Well, because it will, I think it will, some of the people that are afraid, well, not afraid, but some of the people might think, okay, well, there is an option. If this becomes a big issue, we're open to discuss that issue.
This is a learning experience. You're
Right.
going to see what works and what doesn't. This might work out absolutely perfect. This you could have some headaches with. But you also got to remember, fence really doesn't stop anyone from coming in anymore.
Well, it makes it a little hard.
So it's, and the gates, the whole idea of that is letting, you know, kids come through, the parents with the kids, because they're gonna stroll it. You don't really want to go on the top. I don't have a problem with that either. As for the gates, leave them open. If there's some sort of an issue, you can get a time-lapse lock that goes on it, but they're still gonna turn the fence. The police can get back there. There's still a gravel path that's back there, this ties into it, and they're ready to do whatever they have to do.
And then just one other comment. I don't want to see those huge half arches by these entrances.
They're not approved.
Right, okay.
But at the same time, I'd also like to ask for an update on where are we with the 151st Street, because we're talking about getting deconstruction in HR Green, and we have not broken ground yet out front, and that was supposed to happen a week and a half ago. So is deconstruction going to be able to do this? Have we contacted them?
Yeah, we're just waiting to make the determination on what happens with this so that we can add that, potentially add that if it is approved. It would need to be designed. That would take hopefully a couple of weeks, and then we can schedule the pre-construction meeting with deconstruction. The work for the 151st Street portion, it shouldn't take very long. It's pretty straightforward, so it will still happen.
It was anticipated that would be done before Homerfest or by Homerfest. Is that still the case?
It depends. We can talk to the contractor and find out when they're going to
I think they should be working out there if we're, just waiting. They should be working out there while we're waiting for HR Green in the back.
Part of the problem is still with all of the rain.
Sure.
I was just gonna say weather dependent.
Right.
If it would quit raining, we would get a lot more done out here.
Amen.
I have one other comment, or just a question. Are we going to consider in the future, what Trustee Holt said, maybe where you cut in, where the fence was cut right now to get access, to make that a bigger path, another access in over there?
It is in discussion right now. We are working with the township on that and the library. So we're going to make that to where it's easier for everybody.
I thought I saw an email that the library wanted to take.
That's the way to take the front of the fence down. They're not worried about the back, the path that they're, highway cars, but the path in front of the building for the library right now. It's supposed to be closer to 151st Street than farther away. So at that point, there really is no fence. But these are things that can be taken down. When we open up the gate, took it out, and it was done.
Yeah.
So we can get this back.
That opening that's there now, to have it line up with where a path should be between the football field and the baseball field, would need to be moved about 3 sections to the north. But the grading works.
Yeah, I'd like to add my support to that too. I definitely think we can, even if we approve these north and northwest access points tonight, I think we continue to explore that west option. And that, to Trustee Sweas' comments about the half arches, I believe at that area we should do a half arch so that that's a visual wayfinding, so that if you're in the township side, you know to get to Heritage Park and vice versa, because that's, you want to call attention to that, because you can't go back and forth now as opposed to the way it's been for, tens of years. So that's all.
So that's something we'll still work on. That's not even under discussion right now. We'll work on it to get that thing straightened out. So, any other comments? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Holtz? No. Trustee Krasniak?
No.
Trustee Sweas?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers? Aye. Trustee Gray?
Aye.
And aye for myself. Okay, motion carries. Next is the motion to approve the attached proclamation declaring June 7, 2019 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the village of Homer, Glen. Trustee Rogers.
I'll second.
Trustee Gray, discussion? Well, let me read it then, we'll see if there's any discussion afterwards. Proclamation proclamation declaring June 7th, 2019 to be the National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the Village of Homer Glen. This proclamation declares Friday, June 7th, 2019 to be the National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the Village of Homer Glen, to honor and to remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to reduce gun violence. Every day, 100 Americans are killed by gun violence. On average, there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides every year. And Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other high-income countries. And protecting public safety in the communities they serve is Mayor's highest responsibility. And support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens go hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And mayors and law enforcement officers know the communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are the best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And in January 2013, Adia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade, was tragically shot and killed just weeks later. She should now be celebrating her 22nd birthday. And to help honor Adia, the 100 Americans' lives who are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, the National Coalition of Organizations has designated June 7th, 2019, the first Friday in June, as the 5th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. The idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods. And orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 7th, the first Friday in June in 2019, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And by wearing orange on June 7th, 2019, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And as we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that Mayor George Yukich of the Village of Homer Glen declares Friday, June 7th, 2019 to be the National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. So, we have a proclamation that's actually signed, so if you do want a copy of it, I'll give it to you now. Do we? All right, so, all in favor? Or no? Wait a second. Nope. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Sure. Trustee Rogers? Aye. Trustee Sweas?
Aye.
Trustee Graziano?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holt?
Abstain.
Okay. This one I'll give back to you. It is signed so we can get a copy of this. Okay, well, if you want to do a picture, we can do that now. We'll get you copies of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys can hold that. Let me do this. I hate glasses. But I mean, fun. Everyone knows I'm wearing.
Thank you.
Okay, I gotta take that back.
Oh, okay, great.
We're gonna
Okay.
get you a copy.
Okay, thank you again very much. And all of you, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next one, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-022, an ordinance amending 83-68 of the Code of the Village of Homer Glen, increasing the number of B liquor licenses issued within the village of Homer Glen. It is understood that the number of Class B liquor licenses, restaurant and bar will increase by 1.
Page 7.
Yeah, I think you're reading the next one there. First one's decrease, right?
Okay, go back to that one. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-021, an ordinance amending 8368 of the Code of the Village of Homer Glen, decreasing the number of Class B liquor licenses by 1. CCASD Inc., owner Nick Ropa, DPA Eddie's Craft Brew Pub, 15761 South Bell Road, Homer Glen, Illinois. Okay, so
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Raven holds. Discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sweas? Trustee Gresnino?
I recuse myself.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll read it again. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-022, an ordinance amending 83-68 of the Code of the Village of Homer Glen, increasing the number of Class B liquor licenses issued within the Village of Homer Glen? It is understood that the number of Class B liquor licenses, restaurant and bar will then increase by 1. Now I have a motion.
So moved.
Trustee Holmes.
I'll second.
Sweas, discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Gresnino?
I recuse myself.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweas?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-023, an ordinance assigning an available Class B liquor license, restaurant and bar, to Table 1, Inc., owner Gregory Stefan, Taven, Glen, located at 15761 South Bell Road, Homer Glen, Illinois?
So moved.
Trustee Gray,
I'll second.
Trustee Sweas, discussion?
Just want to say welcome to the village. Hopefully they'll
I think they will open.
be nice to see that space repopulated. So
Yes.
hopefully they'll do well.
I agree.
And especially with the outdoor space, which we
Yes.
need, I think that'll.
It's going to be
work
real
really
nice.
well.
Yes. Hopefully they'll draw people over there. So.
Is there any other discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweas? Aye. Trustee Gresnino?
I recuse myself.
I'll vote on that one. Aye. Next, is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report of cash and investments for the period ending April 30th, 2019?
So moved.
Trustee Holmes?
Second.
Is there discussion? No? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweas? Aye. Trustee Gresnino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the accounts payable for the period of April 25th, 2019 through May 23rd, 2019 in the amount of $755,954.96?
Second.
Opposed? Discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweas?
Aye.
Trustee Gresnino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the appointment of trustee Sharon Sweas as mayor pro-tem? It is understood that the mayor pro-tem appointment is for 1 year.
So moved.
Trustee Holmes and trustee Rogers. Is there discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Sweas?
Aye.
Trustee Gresnino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve the appointment of Don Mitchell to serve as chairman of the Village Plan Commission? It is understood that Mr. Mitchell's appointment is for 1 year. Do we need one at a time? I think so.
So moved.
Trustee Gray?
I'll second.
Trustee Sweas. Discussion.
I think Don's doing a great job, and I'd like to just congratulate him on the good job he does, and thank him for doing it for another year.
I agree.
I think Brock did a great job at the last meeting standing in, and if Don decides to not fulfill his term, then Brock should be put in jail.
We've already talked to Brock about that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay, do you want to do, we're going to have to.
That's okay. Trustee Kuzmino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweas?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 2, is there a motion to reappoint Brock Backel to the Plan Commission? It is understood that Mr. Backel's appointment will be from now until May 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Trustee Gray.
Second.
Trustee Rogers. Discussion.
Pretty much what we said before. Rock's doing a great job, too.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweas? Aye. Trustee Kuzmino?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to reappoint Beth Verdum to the Plan Commission? It is understood that Ms. Verdum will serve from now until May 31st, 2022. Trustee Rogers and Trustee Gray. Discussion. All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweas?
Aye.
Trustee Kuzmino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the mayor's committee appointments of Administration and Finance Committee appointments of Mayor Yukich, ex officio, trustees Keith Gray, Beth Rogers, and Sharon Sweas? Can I go all the way through on this one? Or, the Mayor's Community and Economic Development Committee appointments of Mayor Yukich, ex officio, trustee Brad Varian, and committee members Dan Fleming, Bob Kamen, Mark Allen, Dan Kenny, Jody Edelman, Chris Pilzak, Eileen Crement, and Mike Cordell. The Mayor's Environmental Committee appointments of co-chairpersons trustee Sharon Sweas and Ruben Pesmino, and committee members Margaret Sabo, Cynthia Bertant, Bob Moses, Randy Juris, Gary White, Joe Turris, Nancy Carlson, and Andy Pinelli. And the Mayor's Homer Community Festival appointments of chairperson Keith Gray, and committee members Chris Lacacius, Todd Fanfera, Carlo Gabriel, Tony Dravick, Mike DeVivo, Ed Callis, Debbie Stevens, Sarah Rednick, and Sue Stylen. Next page. Parks and Recreation Committee appointments of co-chairpersons trustee Ruben Pesmino and trustee Beth Rogers, and committee members Dale Jansen, Ed Cryer, Bob Gaiman, Russell Knack, Regina Robinson, John Walters, Flor Bachelor, Mark Cowren. Public Service and Safety Committee appointments of chairperson trustee Ann Holtz, and committee members Chris Lacacius, a Homer Township Road District Representative, a Homer Township Fire Protection District Representative, a Northwest Homer Fire Protection District Representative, a Will County Sheriff Office Representative, a Development Services Department Representative, and an EMA representative. And the Emergency Management Agency appointments of Coordinator John Robinson and members Ron Schell, Arnold Centers, David Krivakis, Bill Lionfoot, Jim Riley, Steve Spear, Adrian Byrne, Jim Kinstead, Regina Robinson, and Sam Scapalato. Any questions? I'm not aware again.
So moved.
Trustee Gray, Trustee Rogers, any discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweas?
Aye.
Trustee Kuzmino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 2019 Village Board meeting?
So moved.
Trustee Holtz,
Second.
Trustee Kuzmino, discussion. Nice job of getting it back this quick.
Anytime.
Is there any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sweas? Trustee Guzmino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holt? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Workshop item, discussion of action.
So do you want us to go through the options?
Yeah, could you please go through the three options so everyone does have?
Yeah.
They know what we're going to be doing.
Sure. So the first option is no changes to the zoning districts, which means chickens will be permitted in the E1 and E2 districts with a special use permit, and bees will be permitted only in the agricultural districts. There would be a 50-foot setback requirement for all property lines, so there would be something new. No other changes, and our nuisance ordinance would be enforced. Option 2 is kind of similar to what we presented last time, except for the setback from property lines. So the chickens and bees shall be permitted in E1 and E2, as well as in R1 and R2. R2 meaning 1 acre lots, with no requirement to obtain a special use permit. And the 50-foot setback from property lines still apply, and the nuisance ordinance would be prohibited. So if you look at the graphic in your packet for option 2, with a 50-foot setback, so this is something, it could go down to R2 level lots, which are 1 acre lots, that give them a little bit more room compared to the last time was 75-foot setback. So option 2 is kind of a modified version of what we discussed last time. Option 3 would open chicken and bees to all zoning districts, and you heard in the public testimony about that. And it would still keep the 50-foot setback from all property lines, and the village would enforce the nuisance ordinance. So those two are like a quick overview of the three options.
Discussion, questions?
I think option 2 is a fairly good in-between, not too either way. The bees on 1 acre and above, I don't know, it's like I'm torn on that one, if it should be a little bit more. But if it becomes a nuisance or an issue, we can always revisit it. So I think option 2 is a good compromise for everything.
Everything we're doing right now is going to be a learning process, and we can come back in and tighten it up or loosen it up if everything's going good. So I agree with what you're saying.
I like option 2 as well.
You're okay with option 2?
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's a happy medium. I mean, I don't like restrictions on my land either, but, you have both sides. I think that option 2 kind of weighs right in the middle.
I don't like any of them. Personally, I think there's a history in this town of enacting ordinances that are too restrictive on homeowners that really don't accomplish anything. I think there should be a half-acre minimum for chickens with a 20-foot setback from property lines for the rear and side yards. And I think there should be a grandfather program, which I would like to propose. I don't think there should be any restrictions for bees other than general guidelines for all size lots. They should apply and register either like as a registration or a permit as a beekeeper, and then they should follow general regulations. I was reading various communities where they don't regulate, and I was researching stuff in the city and towns around us where they do allow beekeeping. I feel the restrictions that were proposed, the regulations that were proposed, were based on the sustainability of the hive itself. What benefits the successfulness of the hive? That's all well and good, and I appreciate that. However, if a homeowner decides they want to get into the hobby of beekeeping and they want to spend the money to do it, I don't feel it's our place to say, you can't do that. You can't spend the $800 for one hive, because you want to, or you don't want to. I mean, I just don't feel it's our place. I feel that if you wanted to have up to half acre, have 2 hives per lot, and then 3 hives up to 5, and then after that, I'm not sure about the recommendation. I have seen everything under the sun in the research I've done. I know Christina did a lot of research, and I would like to hear what she has to say when I'm done, because I know she did a lot. I don't feel this is our place. I feel like we're being too restrictive. With regards to the chickens, yeah, I can see where there might be a nuisance, and I can see where there's an issue that we haven't been able to enforce it, and I can see why it would upset people. So what I mentioned before about a grandfather program, I would give them until the end of the year to register with the village and have a permit that would have to be signed off by every surrounding neighbor that they have, if the neighbors are okay with this. You know, they would have to have contact information, who would verify it. This isn't something that's going to go on forever. This is a temporary grandfather program that would end at the end of the year. It's not something that would have to go on and be a burden on staff forever. And if they can't get all of their neighbors to agree, they don't get the permit. I restore it. I just feel like it's too much. That's my personal take. But I would like to hear from Christina, because I know she did a lot of research. And this is an issue that came up while she was still trustee.
All right, so before it goes over to Christine, if she wants to talk, it's up to you. So you're saying you want number 3?
No. I want a half acre for chickens with a 20-foot setback, and I want no restrictions other than the number of hives and a general guideline that we provide to homeowners. That's my take.
Well, we don't guide anything right now.
It's based on what general beekeeping guidelines are by the state and the Will County Beekeepers Association with regards to having, for example, hive location should be placed in a quiet area not directly against a neighboring property unless a solid fence or dense plant area of 6 feet or higher forms a property boundary. Hives should be kept away as far as possible from roads, sidewalks, or rights-of-way. We can provide this information to them. I don't feel like we should be in the business of restricting what people want to do with their private property when it comes to bees. We should be encouraging beekeeping. Bees, pollination of bees provides a huge food resource for us. And they're endangered, and we should be doing everything we can to encourage it, not restrict it. That's my take.
Mayor, I'd like to make a couple comments as well. I think the diverse comments from our small panel is reflected in the bee community too. We've had 2 experts come in here. One recommended nothing smaller than 2.5 acres and 2 hives. One recommended quarter-acre lots with kind of, you know, anything goes. So there's a pretty diverse range of options in the bee community, you know, amongst the experts as well as amongst us, the non-experts. To Trustee Holtz's comments about us restricting, again, you know, just so this gets out there and it gets out there properly, this is a relaxation of our current codes. Our current codes do not allow bees or chickens anywhere other than ag. So this will be a relaxation. And as you've said several times tonight, Mayor, about this and other things, these are learning curves for us. So do we really want to start where we would have to come in and be more restrictive then? Or do we want to start at the other end and kind of slowly walk into this where we can ease it later on? So I like option 2 as a kind of a mid-ground. I know this will impact people. You know, I know there are sensitivities there, but again, I just like to reiterate, this is a relaxation of where we currently are. So if we were to remove the moratorium on the enforcement portion of it, the enforcement would be pretty much on everything. You know, all of those bees would be gone and all of those chickens. So and that's pretty much right now.
Thank you, Trustee Gray, that was well put.
Thank you.
I just want to add that, yes, we have the moratorium, and we're not enforcing it, so putting this in place would be less restrictive than what we have, but we're not enforcing it. I also don't think that the staff is staffed to enforce these things. If we put these restrictions on all these properties for both chickens and bees, that's going to increase the burden on code enforcement. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think we should do it. There's one last thing I wanted to say, if I can find it. I kind of like the suggestion about a co-op in Heritage Park for beekeepers. I read an article about a bee co-op in Chicago that is at the Museum of Science and Industry in Hyde Park. But yeah, if Christine wants to talk to you about a letter, I would like to purchase.
So just a couple of things. In the ordinance, the definition of bees, I think, should be more determined because I think the hives are referring to honeybees and not just any old bee. So I think that should be more defined as it is in other village ordinances. And then it also says poultry, which can be considered of any type of bird. So I think we really need to specify that because chickens may be allowed, but poultry can also be considered roosters, which are actually the real nuisance. I did do a lot of research on this. I have been contacted by, I'll be honest, I've received over 25 emails and many Facebook messages, which, you know, I could not get through them all because there were so many, where there was a recommendation, went from all the way from a third of an acre, half acre, acre, I mean, they just kept coming in. I did read in other ordinance, or other villages that if, I understand that the current residents that are in violation, sort of say, the other villages did grant them a grandfather in, as long as they didn't have any complaints. And how they rectified it was if they did have any complaints that they did have to follow the ordinance. I did reach out to a couple other villages, and what they did do was start off with a happy medium, somewhere in between. But then they said, the three that I did contact eventually did say that they went down to a third of an acre for chickens. But for the honeybees, a lot of the three villages said that they were approving an acre.
What villages?
Crest Hill, New Lenox, and, I'm sorry, not New Lenox, Crest Hill, Crest Hill, Romeoville, and Lockport. So, and then also the city of Chicago as well. And then that last gentleman that I had come and speak, he did say that he would provide, but unfortunately he did not at this time, the Will County Beekeepers Association's rules. So if that would be something that we would consider, having whoever does have a hive, that they would have to follow the rules and sign up with the county.
And then just to add on to Christina, she mentioned at a prior meeting, and I think I mentioned it to Carrie, that you do have lots in Homer right now that are less than a half an acre, but they are surrounded by farm fields because they are not located within a subdivision. And I do feel like that they should be allowed to have beef and chickens. And so one of the early on discussions, I believe it was Trustee Caprio, mentioned no variances once we approve this. I don't feel like this is a blanket one fit all. And I feel like in that situation, those people should qualify for a variance and be allowed to keep it, at least while the property is surrounded by farm fields and not within a subdivision.
Well, like Trustee Gray and myself have mentioned, this is an end-all, this is not an end-all decision right now. Most of the people in there have no idea what it takes to do. So it's something that we're going to have to set back, we're going to have to learn. We're going to hold the fire to the feet of all the people that want to do this. If there is an issue, we'll make sure that we address it to where either it's a one-time deal that we have with them, or they lose it. As for grandfathering something in, I wouldn't want to take away what someone has already had for years. Something that could have done before we even incorporated, so I don't know if I like the idea of taking it away from them. But number 3 was, and what I did like about it is, it was pretty much on the owner's merit. If the owner did good and there were no complaints, it was fine. I myself, and it's not like, I just think about my own family. My kids go out and get dogs and we watch them. And that's what bothers me the most is that our people that are going to have these, are they going to keep, you know, kids always want something. At Easter they want the bunnies and they want the chickens, and then they grow up and then you see them everywhere. Otherwise they're all in the back of the pet store. Let's give this a shot. If we are in consideration of number 2, which I think right now would be our best choice, in my opinion only, and then see what happens, and if it looks like everything's working out right, if someone wants to try something smaller, we do it. If someone thinks that it's not working out right, we want to make it something larger, that's what we do. It is a learning process. We have to see what happens. But in the meantime, we should find out who does have them and see if everyone is in agreement for
And if I could just add one more thing, I was continuing to research other cities and villages, so I will continue to do that just to keep you guys updated on the changes for other villages. So
And I think that's,
bring that forward.
yeah, that's wonderful, because that's the only way we're going to learn.
One last thing, I just don't think that the setback should be equal for chicken coops and bees. Just throwing that out there.
Well, we're going to have to, something's going to have to be in black and white for at least everyone to follow a rule. Because otherwise, if it's all pitch pods, it's, I can't say what I'm thinking, but I think everyone's got that. So,
Well, Mayor, it seems like four of us were going for option 2. Let's start there. And
okay, so, I mean, if there's no more discussion, then,
It's a workshop. I mean.
okay, so we got a consensus of where we're at with it. And let's see if we can get some lists of the people that do have it. Because, I mean, I've heard from a bunch of people too, all over that have them. They say they're all over the city of Chicago downtown. I know they're important to have. But then I also think about one of my good friends, his son is definitely allergic to bees. I don't know if it's every bee, but so
Just to be clear, we're not currently lifting our moratorium on the correct? We're still telling the code enforcement to not enforce the ban until we land on language, if there will be grandfathering or any kind of considerations to that.
Does everyone agree with this?
Yes.
Because even this is a learning curve right here, so I'm fine with it.
Just a note here, as far as the enforcement goes, recently we probably have seen a decline in the amount of complaints regarding these. We've seen a decline in the number of complaints regarding chickens and bees. There are a number of beehives in the community that I'm aware of that we do not receive complaints. There's a number of residents that have chickens that we do not receive complaints. You probably wouldn't even know they're there because of the fencing they have around them and the way they maintain them. They're not a nuisance, so it's something to consider if we're going to enact an ordinance. There's a lot of grandfather potential out there that's occurring that does not affect anybody.
Everyone on board with this?
Yeah, I think that what is being said to staff is that we're kind of coalescing around, I know that Trustee Holtz isn't, but for the majority, it seems like we're coalescing around 2, but we'd like to see some language that maybe gives some consideration to what's already out there, as long as there aren't any standing nuisances or a nuisance doesn't come in. You know, I think that there's going to be a little more, that's what I'm getting, is that we're going to be a little more comfortable there. And like to your point, you know, how are you going to know about these things if there is one that's in somebody's yard that doesn't necessarily hit the option 2 minimums? You're only going to know about it if you get a call for a nuisance or, you know, somebody says something. So at that time, I think that once we kind of land on some language that we all agree on, we're going to ask you to say, all right, now go out and seriously investigate and enforce those nuisances. So I think that's where we're headed. That seems like the direction we're all going.
I would say currently we receive more complaints regarding dogs and cats than we do about bees and chickens.
But chickens, we have to have noises, roosters.
Roosters, we were going to prohibit in all our discussions regarding this anyway.
Yeah.
But currently, you know, that's a nuisance. We consider it a nuisance.
It is a nuisance.
It is.
Okay, is there anything else on this? The next item is executive session. Oh, that's right. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? The next item is executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing executive session minutes 5 ILCS 1202C21 and personnel 51LCS 120/2C1.
So,
Second.
Green, we will be back
Action? Action?
George,